Hello everybody and welcome along to this week's edition of the Rebel White Ball. And obviously with the Cork County Championship moving on at pace, we're going to have a lot of, we'll have some few words to say about that championship. We'll have Camogie, ladies football, golf, soccer, and we'll probably mention a Kerryman who's going to be rather busy minding his sheep on Sunday afternoon. But anyway, to the Cork Senior Football Championship, or the Cork Championships I should say. As you know, there are 4 main adult championships in Cork, although we'll be talking about another one a little later on. And the round 2 games are on this weekend, and these are incredibly important matches for teams that maybe lost the first round, for teams that maybe won the first round. So we're going to start with the Premier Senior Football, and as you know, the score by now, 12 teams divided into 3 groups of 4. In Group A, we're going to have Nemo Rangers taking on Carrigaline. That game goes on Saturday at 5:30 in Porky. And obviously Nemo will be smarting a little bit from their 1-point loss to Valley Rovers in the first round. Carrigaline well and truly beaten by Douglas. So you'd imagine that there's only going to be one outcome there. In the same group, Valley Rovers take on Douglas. And this, if you like, is a top of the table clash. Valley's 1-point win, the last time over Nemo. Douglas had a 9-point win. And when these 2 teams met last year, there was very, very little in it. And I think this could be a real decisive game. The winners here more or less guaranteed a place in the knockout stages. And that match takes place on Saturday at 2 o'clock. Moving on to Group B, and Castlehaven, after their 5-point win over Noosastown, I think they'll be fancied there against Éire Óg. Now, Éire Óg had a great start, to their first year up with their 6-point victory over Cork Rangers. Since then, they've played 2 hurling matches, winning 1 and losing 1. So they will, this is what they want to do in terms of football, play the best. And that game goes on Saturday again, 2 o'clock in Inniskeen. In the same group, Noosastown, who have, since they lost to Castlehaven, they have drawn a hurling match and won a hurling match, so they'll be okay in that front. But they need to win this one if they want to proceed in the championship. And Cork Rangers, with John Hayes back, would like to reverse the result, I think, of when these 2 teams met last week. And that game goes on Sunday. It's the only Premier Senior Football game on Sunday in Clonakilty. Island Rovers obviously have, are going to struggle, no doubt in the world, beaten 8 points by Clonakilty the last day out. They would be playing St. Finbarrs, who had a 1-point win over Ballincollig, and that game going on Saturday in Ballinascarty. So look, there can be only one winner here, I presume, but the big match in this group is Clonakilty, who had that 8-point win. They take on Ballincollig. And look, the reality of this championship, Premier Senior Football, is that there are 3 top teams, Nemo, Castlehaven and St. Finbarrs. For the other clubs, there's 2 objectives: avoiding relegation and to be considered serious contenders. And this is Clonakilty's day. They got to be winning this one, but Ballincollig won't be easy. Moving on to Senior A football, again the same scenario. O'Donoghue, who drew with Bandon the last day out and probably were a bit disappointed insofar as they conceded late scores. They take on Dawneys, who lost by 8 points to Ballingeary. And like O'Donoghue would be fancied here, even though the Dawneys down through the years have been dogged performers. But I think O'Donoghue will be the team that come out here. And that game goes on Drimoleague Sunday at 4 o'clock. And in the same group, if you like, Ballingeary, who had that massive win over the Dawneys, will take on Bandon. And certainly things aren't going Bandon's way at the moment. They drew that football game and they've lost 2 hurling games as far as I know since. So for them, if they get a win, of course, they're back in business. But I'm finding it hard enough to call this, because Ballingeary, I thought had slipped over the last couple of years, but maybe not now. Moving on to Group B in this, and this is where we have Bishopstown, who, after having their horrific opening round defeat, 11-point defeat to St. Michael's, take on the John Finton Daly coach Knocknagree. This game goes on Sunday 2 o'clock in Carrigadrohid. And, we did mention earlier on that there was quite a possibility that Knocknagree would win all their games. And this, they beat Kishgame by 10 points the last day out. And in that other game, then mentioning Kishgame, they will take on St. Michael's. it's going to be a tough one for them. I was disappointed, surprised with their display against Knocknagree. That game goes on Saturday in Coachford at 5:30. And finally, in Group C of this, Fermoy, who lost to Mallow by 2 points, will take on Bantry, who lost by 5 to Clyde Rovers. So this is an opportunity for one of those to get their campaign off, and that's Sunday 1:13 Owens. And then the big one, Mallow and Clyde, and neighbours up there in North Cork. I think it's about 10 years since they have met. And as I said, both of them winning the first day out. So this is a defining game. It's on in Glantan Sunday, and there'd be no love lost between these two protagonists, if you like. Moving on to the Premier Intermediate Football Grade Championship, and one in the A group on Friday night. It kicks off with a game between Vaughan and St. Nick's, and St. Nick's kind of have been in free fall, if you like, for the last couple of seasons. They lost by 16 points to Kenturk. Vaughan, I think that was a bit of a surprise, was they wrong? They beat their neighbours Macroom. And the problem with that victory could be it means so much to them to beat Macroom, like carries serious currencies if you're out in Ballavourna territory. So they will need to come back down to earth for that one. And Macroom, who were very unlucky last year in that they got 4 points and failed to qualify because of scoring difference. They play Kenturk, and that game goes on Saturday at 5:30 in Cullen. Now, as distinct from hurling, because hurling is so high scoring, I don't think scoring difference makes, excuse the pun, a huge difference. But in football, absolutely no doubt about it. And we had at least 3 different situations that were divided by scoring difference last year. So every point and every score counts here big time. Kilnamartyr, big winners over Nemo Rangers, and one of the favourites for this competition, which is, I've always noticed in Cork in these competitions below senior, that if you're favourites, it can be noose around the neck. They play Rockchapel happy out, winners of the intermediate last year, intermediate A, beat St. Vincent's by 8 points the first day out. So they're in bonus territory, and Kilnamartyr, I suppose, would be fancied. They play in Mill Street on Saturday at 4 o'clock. And the 2 losing sides from the first round, Nemo Rangers and St. Vincent's, and my God, St. Vincent will want to get something out of this match. Nemo will obviously pose serious opposition to them. And finally, you've got, in this particular championship, you've Newmarket taking on Piershig beaten as well. As I said last year, it wasn't a good year for North City clubs. It hasn't got much better this year for them. They lost by 5 points to Castletownbere, and that game goes on in Mournabbey. And the other match there, Ahada, who drew with Newmarket, as I said, Newmarket taking on the Piershig, Ahada and Castletownbere, that'll be some ding-dong battle, and it goes on Sunday, is it Saturday? Saturday 4 o'clock in Dunmanway. And obviously will be a most interesting one. In the intermediate A, now here we have 16 teams, and seemingly that's going to be left like that. There was talks that maybe 4 of these would be relegated, but I don't think that's going to happen now. So the matches here, the 4 games here, Mitchelstown, who were in last year's county final, beaten by Ahabulloch in the first round, are playing Glanmire, and I presume Shane Lowry, who will be playing a singles game in the Ryder Cup, will be checking out to know how his new colleague Tomás O'Shea will be getting on. Tomás O'Shea managing Glanmire, and what a start they had, 23-point victors over Kildare. And that game goes on in Castlelyons. I'm not too sure how many football matches have ever been staged down there. But anyway, so Mitchelstown, Glanmire, obviously, I won't say obviously Glanmire will probably be favourites here again. And Ahabulloch will take on Kildare. Great club, so were Kildare, but Kildare were so disappointing, suffering a 23-point defeat, and that game goes on Sunday at 4 o'clock in Kenturk. Kilshannig had a big win the first day out. They take on Glenville, who lost to Adrigole, so I suppose Kilshannig will be favourites there. That game goes on Saturday at 4 o'clock in Kilvolan, and Glanmore take on Adrigole, and Adrigole, will be so pleased with their opening round, getting 2 points for them, because these would be one of the clubs that would be struggling. So again, Glanmore will be wanting to get their campaign up and running, and that game goes on in Inchigeelagh on Sunday. And moving on to Group C there, mentioning Inchigeelagh, you talk about Ivlera, they take on Mill Street. Both of them won their first round games, and of course for Ivlera it was particularly significant. A bit like Airog and Rockchapel, they're a promoted team, and their 6-point win over the Bears. So I think this is another test for them. I fancy them to get over Mill Street in Bellavoon on Sunday at 4 o'clock, and Kinsale and St. Finn Bears both beaten the first round. And I can't call this, to be honest with you. Obviously the Bears, it depends on maybe if they use a couple of extra players in their match with Carrigaline at senior. Gable Rangers, who were the only team that were relegated last year, that won their first round game. They had the 8 points to spare over Ballinora. They take on Ballydesmond, who were so unfortunate to lose by a point to Drumtariff. It's a big game for both of those, no doubt about it. And Drumtariff, after Ballinora's push on the first day, will probably get the nod on that. So these championships, a bit like the hurling, are incredibly competitive, and everything matters. And this is round 2. It will decide on Sunday evening that I suppose you'll have 3 situations. You'll have teams that will be almost sure of qualification. You'll have teams that at best they can do is maintain and not get dragged into a relegation battle. And then of course the relegation battle will be all involved. In ladies football, in the senior, and as you know, like with West Cork gone, this is kind of Mournabbey's championship, if you like. It's a case of who's going to be playing them in the final. As I mentioned before, they're divided up into 2 groups, and in Mournabbey are in Group 1, which is tough looking. The teams that are there, they had a big win over Fermoy last Sunday, and this weekend I think we have Inch Rovers taking on Fermoy. The Inch didn't have any game last weekend. Bride Rovers, who beat Ada, will play Mournabbey, and in Group 2, which is a really competitive group, I think these teams are evenly matched. Vals will take on Airog in a mid-court derby, and Clonakilty, last year's intermediate champions, will take on Kinsale. Those games will be played on Sunday. So, like what they do is it's a bit like the county champions. They play group matches. You know, Camogie is different. They operate a losers round, and this weekend in senior there are 5, if you like, matches between teams who were beaten in the first round last weekend. Airog take on Milford, 4 of them on Saturday. Airog take on Milford. Probably Airog will be the fancied side there. Inniscarra should get over Muskerry. Douglas will probably, they should beat Ballincollig, and maybe Clodove would beat O'Killy. The big match, if you like, from trying to predict is the divisional side Shandoon taking on Noosastown. And again, as we said last week, it depends who Shandoon have on the day. That I think will be a rather competitive affair. Moving on to soccer, and his back to Premier League action. The Carabao Cup was on during the week, and I know this is a competition that features a lot of players that maybe don't get games in the Premier League. Don't feel sorry for them. They're on probably 100 grand a week. But the big result from last night was Manchester United being beaten by West Ham. And this is another competition that Ollie can't win. And it's amazing, you know, they lost a big game the week before, midweek game against Young Boys in the European competition. So after last week's win over West Ham, where the last minute penalty was saved, they'll be hoping that they'll do better when they play in the Premier League. They take on Aston Villa this weekend. Chelsea, for those who follow that particular outfit, flying, beating Spurs 3-0. They take on Manchester City, who had a disappointing 0-0 draw last weekend. Everton, and I know there are some Everton fans out there, will take on Norwich City, and they had a real reversal of fortune. They had a good start under Rafa Benitez, but were beaten by Aston Villa. Liverpool, obviously the big win last weekend, they take on Brentford. They'll be expected to win that. For you Leeds fans, draw last week against Newcastle, take on West Ham. And Arsenal, who have now put 2 wins together against Norwich and Wolves, will take on Spurs in the North London derby, and that's always a kind of an interesting match. The fans there, but Spurs, who started brightly, are now beginning to slip again. But I think this, if you were sports fans, this kind of comes with the territory. And in the League of Ireland, it's back to League of Ireland action for the two Cork clubs. Cork City, despite being beaten by Shells the last time they played, they're now in 7th place. They're doing okay, I suppose the best way to put it. They travel to Limerick to take on Treaty United on Friday, 7:45, and then on Saturday, Cove Ramblers, and to a certain degree the wheels have come off. They are wagging a little bit. They play Ramblers, and they are second from the bottom in that. I know that a lot of you are big golf fans, and this weekend is the Ryder Cup. Now, this is the most incredible competition in terms of, does it mean anything to anybody? At times I wonder, like when you wake up on Monday morning, will you meet anyone saying, gee, we did a great win at the weekend or whatever? Anyway, it's a competition that's played every 2 years. I think it started way back in 1927, and then actually in 2027, for the 100th anniversary, it's going to take place in Adair Manor. The last time it was played in Ireland was 2006 in the K Club. But it's every 2 years, and when it started off, seemingly it was a Great Britain-Ireland team against the US, but the US were too strong, so the rest of Europe were brought in. Now, I'm not too sure where England think they are in all of this now. Like, are they happy walking on with the blue and yellow stars? But anyway, I presume they put politics aside. But it's the marketing that's involved here in this thing is incredible. Now, there are 12 players in each team. And they're selected by the captain, and the Irish captain, be careful, the European captain is Padraig Harrington. He becomes the 3rd Irish captain. In 2014 with Paul McGinley, and in 2016 I think it was Dan Clark was in charge. And the captains are picked by the last 3 captains, a player's representative and a member, the chief executive of the European tour or the American one. But in terms of marketing, they came up with a new one this week where seemingly there's 164 players now have played in the Ryder Cup, which is probably a small number when you think about it, and everybody has a number dependent on whenever you're selected. The last rookie on this occasion he has 164, so they're using some sort of a marketing ploy or motivational thing from the All Blacks where their golf bags will have their number on it, right? But the games on Friday and Saturday, they play foursomes in the morning. I know, 4 balls in the afternoon, 2 versus 2. The difference between a foursome and a 4 ball, I think, is that in a foursome, be a cool muck. They use the 1 ball, and in the 4 ball, every player plays with his own particular white ball. So usually the thing on Saturday and Sunday is to make sure that it's reasonably close, so everybody tunes in for Sunday for the singles game. 28 games in all, so the first team that wins 40, and matches can be halved, of course, 14.5 to get them there. But for Europe, because they are the reigning holders, if they get to 14, they win it. So I know, and it will be watched in several houses, and the incredible interest in it. But and by the way, these players who are professionals, they don't get paid for this. Do they need it? Like? But anyway, so that's your Ryder Cup. In terms of inter-county managerial carry-on, I noticed that a section of the Cork media seem to be more interested in what's happening in Kerry than they are what's happening in Cork. I hear nothing about. I've heard very little in the past week, but in Kerry we've heard about various combinations that have been put forward in Kerry as to who will be the next manager down there. Remember, Peter Keane can still be that manager. But in Cork anyway, what's happening now is that anybody that's interested, and it's still not too late, by the way, you fill out your CV, right? And you will forward it into the county board, the CEO or CE, my apologies, before 5 o'clock tomorrow evening, and then you'll be considered. And for some people that are interested in this, it's a case of, will they give the John Fintan Daly? I'm not too sure whether they will or not, or is that even the correct way to put it. And I don't know who else is going to be involved in it. In terms of the ladies' football, I believe that there was 3, it's now down to 2 between Shane Ronan and John Cleary. Last night, there was a Junior B football match, a quarter-final game between Garnish and Kilbree. The reason it was played midweek was because there's a wedding in Garnish today. It will be going on tomorrow, and I'd say there'll be a shot of it taking place on Saturday. But anyway, aside from all that, so it was agreed to play the match last night. And this is Junior B now. Terribly close affair. It ended level 1-11 to 8. So, and that was after extra time. Next up, penalties, and the situation with penalties, every team takes 5. So after taking 5, they had both missed one, so it was 4 each. Sudden death then. What an incredible way to win and to lose a match. And Garner scored the first penalty, and the second penalty was superbly saved by their goalkeeper. This was not a miss. Superbly saved by their goalkeeper and team captain Ross Murphy. And I'd imagine that he will be well toasted down around. Seemingly the wedding is on today, and reception over in Kenmare Bay, but they'll be back to O'Neill's and O'Hally's tomorrow. And this June will be, and it's only quarter-final, and the chances that they win it are probably slim enough. In the next round, I think there's a couple of matches this weekend. We've Doneraile playing Colleen. We've Abbey Rovers playing Rock Rovers, and the winners of that will play Randlow to decide who plays Garnish. And you've Glengariff and Deal Rovers. But I came across, like this game was on last night. I'd imagine by the time they got home to Kilbrain and down to Garnish, and you know, a lot of the Garnish crowd would be living around the city, maybe and elsewhere, but a lot of them were heading back because of what's happening down there today and over the next couple of days. But it was well in after midnight when a lot of these got home. But came across a guy called Cormac McMahon. I don't know anything about him, but seemingly his mother is from this area. He was born in Dublin, and he used to come down on holidays to his uncles in O'Hally's, played a bit with them, with Garnish, and he's now involved as a selector and trainer with the team. He does huge work in their social media, and he was involved in their Track the 100, and he lives in Dublin. He travelled down for that match last night, and see me, he's married with 2 kids as far as I know, and he'll be down for training the weekend. I'm only after hearing about this, but this is to me the most incredible, I suppose, form of volunteerism, if you wish. Like, to be doing this for a Junior B football team that will struggle to win this county championship. No doubt, no worry about that. This individual, and probably there are several more like him, of course there are, but I've been so taken by this man who's doing this for this place down there, and you know, we wish him well and well done, and they're lucky to have him. And finally, if you're in London this weekend, and around Sunday afternoon, you'll know there's a Kerryman marching about 100 sheep over London Bridge. He's a guy called Dan Tim O'Sullivan from Cleask, I think, in Kells, in kind of South Mid-Kerry area. And 50 years ago, as a 16-year-old, he went to London, and I don't think he had to hire a security firm to bring the books over with him, probably like a lot of people went with very little. And he eventually got involved in construction and set up a company called the Denny O'Sullivan Group. And in 2019, he was granted the Freedom of London. This is an incredible honour. You know, the company now employs maybe 1,500 people. He's been involved in a huge amount of work in terms of charity work and supporting Irish and all that. But there was obviously they couldn't have the celebration. So it's going on this Sunday. And as part of the tradition, Dan will be herding 100 sheep, his own sheep. Now, he might be buying them in from Scotland, but he's a sheep farmer as well in Kerry. So well done to him, and well done to the people who will be travelling over. So if you're in London, you'll know what's going on. Anyway, until the next time, take care.